What's up, guys? Neil Orfield here, and I'm going to show you how I will be setting up my fantasy cruncher for tonight's Thursday night football game between the Niners and the Seahawks. I'll be setting up for the largest field GPP on FanDuel. So some things I will do in this video I might not do if I were playing a small field GPP. Things like leaving salary on the table, adding players to my player pool who don't project all that well. Not necessary in smaller field stuff, but in a large field GPP, I'll be making those moves. While you're coming in, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification button. By the way, later you'll be hearing a read from me about this 3 free days promo that we've got going on for new users. I would recommend taking advantage of that today if you have not already. If you are a new user, just because it is Thursday, we've got Saturday and Sunday football coming up, so the time is right to take advantage of that today. Okay, first thing I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to rearrange the columns so that they are where I want them to be, with ownership projections, exposure cap, etc., right in the middle of the screen. Next, I'm going to sort by projection, and I'm going to remove every player who has a projection of 0 from my player pool. Just clicking and dragging down to get rid of all these players from the player pool. And the reason I'm doing this is because when I'm making groups later, it's going to save me some time to not have all of these players in the player pool. It's going to be easier for me to find the players I want to find without all of these extra players in the pool. There are so many of them on FanDuel. I think everybody who's ever played for either of these teams is in this player pool. All right, looks good. Next, I'm going to hit this. I'm going to go to this MVP tab here, and I am going to set an exposure cap on the MVP spot at 20%. I was already looking at our single game tool today, and I didn't see any player on this slate who is optimal in the MVP spot more than 20% of the time. So I think 20% is a good number here. Now I'm going to go into advanced options, and I'll be working in 2 tabs here, the general tab and the groups tab. Starting in the general tab, unique players per lineup, I'm going to leave that at 1 unique player per lineup. So my lineups can be 1 player apart from each other. If you're making 40 or fewer lineups, I would set this to 2 unique players per lineup, just for the sake of diversifying your lineup set. Team salary, not going to set a minimum. I will set a maximum just for the purpose of avoiding the most duplicated lineups. I'm looking to win. I want to win a lot of money, and one of the easiest ways to avoid duplication is to leave salary on the table. So I'm just leaving $1,500 on the table here for the sake of this video. Adjust as you want. If you want to be a little bit riskier and try for winning solo first place, then maybe leave a little bit more salary on the table than $1,500. But if you just want to have a shot at a better shot, a slightly better shot at first place, the less money you leave on the table, the likelier you are to win ever so slightly. Offensive players versus defense, default set to max 2 players. I'm going to change that to max 4 players, so I can have 4 players from one team against just the defense of the opposing team. Not something that comes up all that often, but we've already seen it win at least once this year. I think maybe a couple times where we have the only representative from one of the teams is their defense. I want to at least allow for that possibility. I'm going to leave the global exposure cap at 100%. I already adjusted the MVP spot to 20%. Randomness, I'm going to set at 30%. I think that's a pretty good number where you're giving up a little bit of control over your lineups. You still have a good amount and adding some randomness to the process. But if you want more control over your lineups, maybe set this number a little bit lower. Maybe 10% is better if you want more control. Minimum projection included in calculation, default set to 3. I'm going to leave it at 3. If there's a player who I want in my player pool and they project for fewer than 3 fantasy points, I'm just going to boost them above that number. Player from each team max, default set to 4. Again, I'm going to leave that at that, so I can have 4 players from one team against just against 1 player from the opposing team. Guys, we have a great offer for new users only. You can get full access to everything Stokastic has to offer for NFL for 3 days free. Projections, ownership, 1v1 tools, lineup generator, top stacks tool. 0 risk because it's all free. So sign up now. The link is in the description of this video. Note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in this offer. All right, now I'm going to move on to groups. And the groups I'm going to set here revolve around the quarterbacks, starting with a Geno Smith MVP group. I'm going to find Geno in the MVP spot, make him my key player. sort by position, and I can see here's where I benefit from removing those players from my player pool. Now I no longer have players with 0 projections here, so I can more quickly find all of these Seahawks pass catchers that I want to add to a secondary group here. I'm going to do that now. It's debatable here whether you need to or want to include the running backs. Kenneth Walker, not extremely involved in the passing game. I think he gets about 3 targets, maybe 2.5 targets per game. So certainly, could have a receiving touchdown and benefit Geno there and see some correlation, but generally not all that involved in the passing game. So don't necessarily need to include him. I think I'm going to start by including him in here. And if I see too many lineups with just Geno and Kenneth Walker, I might come back and remove him. But so I'm going to, with Geno Smith, he has a little bit of rushing upside, about 20 yards per game on the ground. Obviously, could spike for something higher than that, in which case you might not need multiple pass catchers to have Geno as the optimal MVP. So I'm only going to require 1 pass catcher from this group. So I'm going to leave this just as is. If any key player used, then use at least 1 player from this group. I'm going to leave that as is, but I'm also going to boost the pass catchers from the Seahawks here with in lineups that have Geno in the MVP spot. And the running backs, I think I'm going to leave them in here, but I'm also not going to actually give them a boost. So I am allowing for the possibility of Geno Smith in the MVP spot with just a running back, but I'm also not going to give them any kind of boost. I'd rather have a wide receiver or tight end there. All right, next group I'm going to create is a Brock Purdy MVP group. So finding Purdy in the MVP spot, going to make him a key player. And then same thing, adding all of these Niners pass catchers to a secondary group. Christian McCaffrey obviously is very involved in the passing game, so feel more comfortable with those groups with Purdy and McCaffrey. All right. And then same thing, I think Brock Purdy, I think he has a little bit more rushing upside than Geno Smith. Rushed for like 30 yards per game in college. He had a lot of rushing yards in college and even had a season where he had 8 rushing touchdowns. So he has flashed some upside on the ground. I think he scored a rushing touchdown last week in the NFL. So we know that he's got some rushing upside, a little bit more than Geno, but I still think I'm going to set the groups the same where I'm requiring 1 pass catcher from the Niners when I have Purdy in the MVP spot. And then once again, giving boost to all of these pass catching options. And maybe once again, the running backs, maybe I just leave them as is. McCaffrey, as I said, very involved in the passing game, but also projects far better than anybody else on the slate. Don't know that I necessarily, want to give him a boost in this group. Maybe just because the price tag is so high, but I'm gonna see how this comes out first. All right, next. Geno in the flex. So here I find him, Geno in the flex, make him a key player. Same thing, add all of these Seahawks pass catchers. And also in the MVP spot now, because I have Geno in the flex, I can add those Seahawks pass catchers in the MVP spot. Probably don't need to find the guys that don't project for much at all, because they're probably not going to be players I use in the MVP spot on FanDuel since there is no salary multiplier. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, I guess I got, I think, all of them anyway. So here the question is, do I want to require a pass catcher when I have Geno in the flex, or do I just want to give them boosts? It is a very good question on FanDuel because there is no PPR bonus. It's a little bit more likely that you get these running backs in the flex without any pass catcher. I think that, you see it more often than you would think on FanDuel just because of the lack of PPR. And Geno does have a little bit of rushing upside. So I think there are two different ways you could approach this. You could just say, the most likely outcome is if Geno is in the optimal lineup, even in the flex, he's probably, thrown at least one touchdown, probably bringing along at least one pass catcher with him. But there is certainly in a 150 set, which is what I'm building for here, there is some chance that that Geno gets into the flex as the optimal, gets into the optimal in the flex without bringing along any pass catchers. Because again, there's not a full PPR, and also I'm trying to think what the other reason, because it's not full PPR on FanDuel, and Geno does have some rushing upside. I think I'm going to click this only apply plus minus adjustments button, and then just give a little boost to the pass catchers. We'll see how this comes out. If I see too many lineups with just Geno and no pass catchers, I'd probably come back and change this. Here, maybe I give smaller boost to the running backs. We'll see how this comes out. All right, same thing now. Going to find Brock Purdy in the flex, make him my key player. And then I'm going to add all these pass catchers to a secondary group. Including the running backs. And then, of course, including all these players in the MVP spot as well. All right, looks good. And same thing as Geno, I think that it is possible for Purdy to be optimal in the flex without bringing somebody along. So I'm going to click that only apply plus minus adjustments button. And once again, boost to all of the pass catchers. Bigger boost to tight ends and wide receivers than running backs. And that'll do it for these groups. Now I'm going to save. All right, there we have it for correlations. Now I'm going to crunch out 150 lineups using my projections and see what comes out. All right, so first lineup, we see Brock Purdy's in the lineup with Christian McCaffrey as the only pass catcher. Again, totally fine with that. Second lineup, we see Geno in the MVP with 3 pass catchers. Looks good to me. Purdy with just 1. And again, I'm okay with that because of Purdy's rushing upside. Geno Smith with Tyler Lockett looks good. Lockett with Geno looks good. And Geno with all these other pass catchers as well. Some concern here that I have Lockett in the MVP and then 2 more pass catchers from the Seahawks, but 2 more is, that's not that much. I think I'm probably okay with that. Geno with multiple looks good. Geno with multiple. Not getting to a ton of Brock Purdy here. Okay, here you got Brock Purdy in the MVP with just Ray McLeod. Again, I think I'm okay with that because of the rushing upside. Here's one where you have Purdy in the flex without any pass catchers from the Niners. Again, I don't want to see a ton of that, but I'm okay with seeing it occasionally because of the rushing upside and the lack of full PPR. All right, here we've got Purdy in the MVP with just 1 pass catcher and Ray McLeod. Not my favorite thing to see too much, but I'm okay with it in some lineups. This looks good. Geno with DK. In general, I'd say I'm okay with all of these lineups individually. But then the other thing I look at, so I'm looking at the correlations now. The other thing I look at is how much I'm actually getting of each player. So looking at each individual position, looking at quarterbacks first, getting a 61% Geno, 30% Brock Purdy. And here is, I'm not going to go through my whole process of many crunches before I get to the exposure levels that I like. I haven't done all of my research on this slate yet. So going to make those decisions after inactives come out an hour and a half before the game. But just looking at this, eyeballing it from here, I'd probably say Brock Purdy. Maybe I want more than 30% Brock Purdy. So I'd give him a little bit of a projection boost. Christian McCaffrey, 44% seems pretty good. Kenneth Walker, 10%. I mean, it's a tough matchup. I think that's probably okay, but maybe I'll give him a little bit of boost just because I know if I don't, as I adjust other people, I'll probably get to less. Getting to 18% Jordan Mason seems like quite a bit. I'm going to sort by salary here. All right, so Travis Homer, clearly too expensive for his likely role in the offense. I don't know. If the field's getting to 3.7% Travis Homer, I think that most of us are assuming that Kenneth Walker is going to come back and just be the lead back here. And, Travis Homer won't get a ton of opportunity. Maybe there's some chance that he's going to play a bigger role than we expect in Kenneth Walker's return from injury. So maybe I'd come in and try and get him into the player pool. Not necessarily. Haven't made that decision yet. Kyle Juszczyk at just 5,500, kind of interesting. 6% projected ownership. Maybe I try to get him into the player pool. All right, Brandon Ayuk I like here. Clearly too expensive given his projection, but no Debo. Great matchup. I think that there's upside here. I think there's upside in Ayuk. So I'm going to get him. I can see I'm only getting to 16% DK Metcalf, who is 1,200. So he's less expensive than Brandon Ayuk. If I give Brandon Ayuk the same projection as DK Metcalf, I'm going to get a pretty small number. It's going to be less than 16%, almost certainly. So I'm going to give Ayuk a higher projection than Metcalf, projection of 12, maybe bring Metcalf up to 11 as well. Already getting to a good amount of Lockett, as you can see, is cheaper than DK Metcalf and projects better. So that makes sense. Getting to a ton of Ray McLeod. He projects well for his price tag. Maybe I want a little bit more Marquise Goodwin, though. So I'll give him a little bit of a projection boost. Juwan Jennings, again, in a pretty good matchup. Not getting a ton of ownership. Maybe I'd want to give him a little bit of a boost. And then do I want Danny Gray in my lineup set? I don't know. I'll give him a projection of 3 and see if he gets in there. Tight ends, again, George Kittle. It doesn't project all that well, but again, it's a great matchup. No Deebo Samuel. I think that I'm probably going to want more than 5% George Kittle. So I'll give him a little bit of a boost here. Noah Fant already getting to a good amount. Will Dissly getting to a good amount. Colby Parkinson not in the player pool. Give him a little bit of a boost. See how that comes out. Kickers, maybe I want to stay right around. This is kind of the range that I aim for most weeks, most games on kickers. Not always, because they do often show up a lot better in the single game tool. Sometimes they'll look like they're optimal 30% of the time. So I'll have to see what the tools say later on. But maybe I just give these guys, for now, I'm just going to give them a little bit of a bump just to make sure I'm still getting to some of them hopefully close to these same numbers. This is all kind of trial and error for me. Have to see how it goes. 49ers defense. It's a great defense. Maybe give them a little bit of a boost so I can get more than 8%. Seahawks defense against a rookie quarterback. They're just 8,500. Not the best defense in the world, but maybe they have a shot to put up some points against Purdy. All right, I'll crunch it out again. Guys, we have a great offer for new users only. You can get full access to everything Stokastic has to offer for NFL for 3 days free. Projections, ownership, 1v1 tools, lineup generator, top stacks tool. Zero risk because it's all free. So sign up now. The link is in the description of this video. Note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in this offer. Defense against a rookie quarterback. They're just 8,500. Not the best defense in the world, but maybe they have a shot to put up some points against Purdy. All right, I'll crunch it out again. I can see right away that I'm getting to a ton of Kyle Juszczyk, more than I intended to get to. So then go through again and see now. Not getting to a ton of these defenses. Maybe I give them your boost here. Good amount of the kickers, maybe just to keep up a little bit, give them tiny boosts. And the way I do this, probably not the most efficient, where I'm just boosting everybody up most of the time and just rarely boosting people down. Just a process that works for me. It's probably more efficient if you more often go through and just give negative boosts to some players, but this is my general approach. Easier for me to keep track of if I'm only giving positive boosts for the most of the time, and then occasionally give negative if I think it's necessary. Kittle, I think I want even more. All right, Ayuk, I think I want even more as well. Maybe Metcalf too. Keep Lockett where he is. And now you can see I'm getting to a ton of Danny Gray because he's so cheap, allows you to get in more studs. So maybe I need to give a little bit of a boost to these guys. Again, always keeping in mind that all projections are relative to each other. 50% McCaffrey looks good. Still getting just 10% Kenneth Walker. More there. Travis Homer. Again, don't know if I really want Travis Homer in my player pool, but you can make a case for him. I'll have to see what things look like later. Jordan Mason looks pretty interesting at 7,000. I think he's CMC's primary backup. He's got some outs. I'll use check. Clearly, I gave him too big of a boost here, so I actually will give him just a little bit of a negative boost. All right, quarterbacks look good. Crunch it out again. Actually, I might be getting a little bit more Geno Smith than I want against this Niners defense. But again, not going to go through my entire process here. I'm just going to show you generally how I'm thinking about it. And right away here, as I look at just these top lineups, I can see Geno Smith without any pass catchers, Geno Smith without any pass catchers. A lot of that. And I don't think I want that much of Geno Smith without any pass catchers. So I think I could go back and adjust some things in the groups that I made, give bigger boosts to pass catchers or require a pass catcher, a lot of different ways to approach it. I think, though, I'm also getting to more Geno Smith than I want. Generally, I'm getting to 74% Geno Smith. I don't think I necessarily want 74% Geno Smith. Again, going to make that decision later. But I think I'm just going to give him lower his projection a bit. So now you can see I gave these quarterbacks the exact same projection. Brock Purdy is more expensive, so generally I'd expect to get to more of Geno Smith even when I give them the exact same projection. But then, of course, you factor in the correlations involved with these quarterbacks. That might not be the case just because, now if Brock Purdy has better pass catching options, we project better in general. Because of the correlations I set, I might still get excuse me, more of Brock Purdy than Geno Smith, even though he projects the same and is more expensive. Could happen, but let's wait and see. And there you have it. Got to more of Brock Purdy, even though he's more expensive at the same projection. Getting to more of Brock Purdy just because of his pass catchers look better. 37%. McCaffrey looks good. 15% Walker, probably fine. Looks like I have one share of Travis Homer. Maybe that's okay. Still getting 20% use check. I don't know. Probably don't want that, but can wait and see later. Excuse me. Now getting into more reasonable numbers for these high-end wide receivers. Yeah, these look closer to what I'd probably want. Getting to about the amount of Kittle that I want. I'd say I'm getting closer to the generally getting closer to the numbers that I want on these guys. Maybe I probably want more of these kickers, so maybe I'd give them a little bit of boost. Defenses, maybe I'd want a little bit more of the Niners. But again, I'm not going to go through this entire process right now. Just trying to show you what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the lineups themselves. Do they correlate well enough? Here you can see again, Geno without any pass catchers. I intentionally allowed for that. I wouldn't mind having a few of those in my set, but I don't want to see 20 of those. Here's another one. There's 2 already. So I don't know, something to keep an eye on. Here's 3. So maybe I would consider going back if I see too many of those into advanced options groups. Geno in the flex, either give bigger boost to his pass catchers, or you could just say, uncheck this box and just require at least one pass catcher when you have Geno Smith in the flex. If I did that, I would probably actually remove the running backs because they don't correlate that great for the Seahawks. But generally, this is my process. These are the things I'm thinking about: correlation, exposure levels to different players. That's kind of it for me. Okay, that's going to do it for this video. Good luck tonight. Hope you can find some success using this or a similar process.